She had to make a choice: the man she loved or the life she always wanted.
Welcome back to African Heart Vault. Before today's story begins, I want you to do something very important. And no, don't skip this part. Just imagine this for a moment. What if you were married to someone who truly loved you, someone loyal, someone honest, someone who would stand beside you in every storm, someone who would sacrifice everything just to see you smile? But there was one problem. They were poor, very poor. Now imagine this. One day, a rich millionaire walks into your life. He offers you everything your partner never could. A luxury house, expensive cars, designer clothes, unlimited money. A life that looks perfect from the outside. So tell me, what would you choose? Love or money? Would you stay with the one who truly loves you? Or would you walk away for comfort, wealth, and a life of luxury? Take a second and think carefully. Then go to the comments right now and type your answer. Love or money? And don't change it later. Because by the end of this story, many of you may completely regret the answer you gave at the beginning. Some of you will be shocked. Some of you will feel angry. And some of you may see your own life in this story. So comment your answer now. And while you're there, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to African Heart Vault, and turn on the notification bell for more emotional African stories filled with love, betrayal, sacrifice, revenge, and endings you will never forget. Now sit back, relax, and let me tell you a story that shook an entire town. A story about love, a story about greed, a story about betrayal, and a story about a man who lost everything, only to gain far more than he ever imagined. Let's begin. There was a small town called Kijana, a peaceful place known for its beautiful sunsets, busy markets, hard-working people, and a strong sense of community. In Kijana, everyone knew everyone. And secrets? Secrets never stayed hidden for long. But 5 years ago, something happened in that town. A betrayal so painful, so unforgettable, that people still talk about it to this day. At the center of that story was a young woman named Amina. Amina was beautiful, not just ordinary beauty. She was the kind of woman who could make people turn their heads the moment she walked by. Women admired her beauty. Men dreamed of winning her heart, and wherever she went, her confidence made her impossible to ignore. But Amina had already given her heart to someone, a young man named David. Now David was not rich. He had no expensive car, no designer clothes, no family wealth, no business empire. David spent his days repairing bicycles and motorcycles in a small workshop near the market. Most evenings, his hands were covered in grease, his clothes were worn out, and his body was exhausted from working long hours. But David had something many rich men never have. He had a good heart, a truly good heart. He was honest, kind, loyal. The kind of man who would help someone even when he had nothing for himself. If an old neighbor needed food, David would help. If a child couldn't afford school supplies, David would find a way. If someone was in trouble, David never looked away. And because of that, the entire town respected him. And Amina knew this better than anyone. When they first met, David had nothing. No money, no property, no business, nothing. But he loved Amina with every part of his soul. And in the beginning, she loved him too. At least, she believed she did. When David proposed to her, many people laughed. Some even warned Amina. They told her she was making the biggest mistake of her life. They said she could marry a rich businessman, a government official, a successful entrepreneur. But instead, she was choosing a poor mechanic. Still, Amina didn't listen. Or maybe she didn't want to. She married David, and for a while, they were happy. Truly happy. Their house was small. The roof leaked when it rained. The furniture was old, and some days, even buying enough food was difficult. But every night, they laughed together. They shared dreams together. And they believed that one day, life would get better. But life has a way of testing people, especially when money enters the picture. As time passed, things became harder. Prices went up. Bills increased. Expenses grew heavier. But David's income stayed almost the same. Every morning, he left before sunrise. Every night, he came home after dark. He worked harder than ever before. But somehow, it was never enough. And slowly, something started changing inside Amina. At first, it was frustration, then disappointment, then bitterness. Whenever she saw wealthy women driving expensive cars, she felt jealous. Whenever she attended luxurious weddings, she felt angry. Whenever she looked around their small home, she felt trapped. The dreams she once shared with David began to fade. And in their place, a dangerous desire began to grow. The desire for wealth, the desire for status, the desire for a better life, no matter the cost. One evening, David came home with a small bouquet of flowers. He had used part of his lunch money to buy them. As he walked in, he smiled softly and said, "Amina, I saw these and thought of you." But instead of smiling, Amina looked at him coldly, then at the flowers, then back at him. And the words she said next pierced David's heart. "Flowers?" she snapped. "Flowers won't pay our bills." David froze. The smile vanished from his face. For a few seconds, he couldn't even speak. "I just wanted to make you happy," he said quietly. But Amina laughed bitterly. "Happy? You think flowers can make me happy? We can barely survive, David. Look at this house. Look at our lives. Look at yourself." Every word cut deeper than the last. David lowered his eyes. He knew life was hard. He knew she was frustrated. But hearing those words from the woman he loved, that pain was different. And sadly, that was only the beginning. Because somewhere in Kijana, a wealthy man had already noticed Amina. And very soon, everything was about to change. The next morning, David woke up before sunrise, just as he always did. He quietly got ready for work while Amina lay in bed. Before leaving, he paused and looked at her. Even after the harsh words from the night before, he still loved her. He still believed things could get better. He still believed their marriage could survive. Gently, he kissed her forehead and walked out. A few seconds later, Amina opened her eyes. She had been awake the whole time. For one brief moment, guilt touched her heart. But that feeling didn't last. Because the moment she remembered her struggles, her frustration returned. That afternoon, Amina went to the market. The streets were crowded. Vendors shouted from every side. Children ran through narrow paths. Women bargained over prices. It felt like any normal day. Until suddenly, a shiny black luxury car slowed down beside her. People turned immediately. Cars like that were rare in Kijana. The door opened, and out stepped a man who looked like he belonged to a completely different world. Expensive watch, designer suit, polished shoes, confidence in every step. His name was Marcus, and from the very first moment he saw Amina, he couldn't stop looking at her. Amina noticed him too. At first, she tried to ignore him, but Marcus smiled. The kind of smile of a man who is used to getting exactly what he wants. "Good afternoon," he said. Amina nodded politely. "Good afternoon." Marcus studied her carefully. "I've seen many beautiful women," he said, "but I don't think I've ever seen anyone quite like you." Amina felt herself blush. It had been a long time since anyone had spoken to her that way. A very long time. She quickly looked away. "Thank you." Marcus extended his hand. "My name is Marcus." "Amina," she replied. Then came the question. "Are you married?" Amina hesitated. "Yes." Marcus smiled, and strangely, his smile only grew wider. "I see." Then he handed her a business card. "If you ever need anything, call me." Before she could say another word, he stepped back into his car and drove away, leaving Amina standing there, confused, curious, and excited in a way she didn't want to admit. That night, she couldn't stop thinking about him, his confidence, his wealth, his car, his lifestyle, everything that seemed missing from her own life. Days passed, then weeks. And just when she thought she might never see him again, Marcus appeared once more. This time at a restaurant. Amina was there with a friend when Marcus walked in, almost as if by coincidence. Or maybe not. He greeted her warmly and insisted on paying for their meal. At first she refused, but Marcus insisted again. Eventually, she accepted. And that was how it started. One conversation, then another, then another. Soon, Marcus and Amina were speaking regularly. At first, she told herself it was harmless, just friendship, nothing more. But deep down, she already knew she was crossing a dangerous line. One evening, Marcus invited her to a luxury hotel. Amina almost said no. Almost. But curiosity won. And when she arrived, she was speechless. The chandeliers, the marble floors, the expensive decor. Everything looked like something out of a dream. Marcus watched her closely and said in a calm voice, "You deserve this kind of life." Amina said nothing. "You deserve more than struggle," he continued. "More than unpaid bills. More than disappointment. More than a tiny house." Those words hit her deeply, because they echoed the same thoughts she had been hiding in her heart for years, and Marcus could see it. The seed had already been planted. Now all it needed was time. Meanwhile, David knew nothing. Every day he kept working harder, trying to earn more, trying to fix what was breaking, trying to save a marriage that was already slipping through his fingers. One evening, David came home with a rare look of hope on his face. "Amina," he said excitedly, "I have good news."
She looked up from her phone. "What is it?" "The owner of the workshop wants to make me a partner." For the first time in weeks, David looked genuinely alive. "If things go well," he said, "our future could finally change. We may even be able to buy a bigger house one day." He expected her to smile, to celebrate, to believe with him. But instead, Amina shrugged. "One day," she said coldly. David frowned. "What do you mean?"
You always say one day, she replied. One day things will improve. One day we'll have money. One day life will get better. Then she looked at him and said, "I'm tired of one day, David." The room fell silent. And for the first time, David felt a fear rising inside him. Because this was no longer simple frustration. Something deeper was happening. Then his eyes landed on something on the table, a small, expensive gift box. He picked it up slowly. "Amina," he asked, "where did this come from?" For just a second, panic flashed across her face. Then she quickly recovered. "A friend gave it to me." David opened the box. Inside was a beautiful gold necklace, the kind he could never afford. His stomach tightened. "What friend?" Amina folded her arms. "Why are you questioning me?" The tension in the room became unbearable. And for the first time in his marriage, David felt something he had never truly felt before. Suspicion. A suspicion that would soon expose a truth far worse than he imagined. That night, David couldn't sleep. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw that necklace. Every time he tried to calm down, the same question returned. Who gave it to her? The next morning, Amina left the house earlier than usual. David watched from the window. Something felt wrong. Very wrong. And for the first time in his life, he followed her. Amina walked past the market, past the school, past small shops. Then she stopped. David hid behind a nearby wall, and his heart began pounding, because parked by the road was that same black luxury car. Marcus. David watched as Marcus stepped out with confidence. Then he opened the passenger door for Amina, and she smiled. Not the polite smile she gave strangers, not the tired smile she gave David at home. A real smile. A smile David had not seen in years. And in that moment, his heart broke. He stood there frozen as Amina entered Marcus's car. Then the car drove away, leaving David alone by the roadside as his whole world collapsed around him. That night, David waited in silence. Hours passed. The sun went down. Darkness covered Kijana. Still, Amina had not returned. Finally, close to midnight, the door opened. She stepped inside, and the moment she saw David sitting in the darkness, she stopped. Slowly, David stood up. His eyes were red, not with anger, with pain. Who is Marcus? Silence. Amina's face changed. For a moment, she couldn't speak. Then she looked away. A friend. David laughed. But it was not the laugh of joy. It was the laugh of a broken heart. A friend, he repeated. Does your friend buy you jewelry? Does your friend drive you around town? Does your friend spend hours alone with you? Amina said nothing, and her silence said everything. David's voice trembled. Amina, Tell me the truth. Do you love him? Tears formed in her eyes. Not because she was sorry, because she was tired of pretending. Finally, she whispered, I don't know. David looked at her as if the ground had disappeared beneath his feet. I don't know? He repeated. Then she said the words that shattered what remained of him. Maybe I do. Years of sacrifice, years of loyalty, years of struggle, destroyed in a few seconds. He gives me the life I always wanted, she said. David stared at her in disbelief. He gives you money, he replied. He gives me opportunities. He gives you luxury. He gives me a future. David's eyes filled with tears. And what did I give you? He asked. She looked away. What did I give you, Amina? Was my love worth nothing? Was my loyalty worth nothing? Were all my sacrifices worth nothing? For one brief moment, Amina had no answer. Because somewhere deep down, she knew the truth. David had always loved her. But greed has a way of blinding people, and Amina had become blind. Their argument lasted deep into the night. Voices rose. Emotions exploded. Neighbors listened from behind windows. The whole street could feel the marriage breaking apart. Then finally, Amina said the words that changed everything. I'm leaving. David stared at her. What? I'm leaving. Tears streamed down his face. Please, Amina, he begged. We can fix this. We can survive this. We can start over. But her heart was already gone. She packed her clothes, her belongings, her dreams. And within an hour, she was standing at the front door with a suitcase in her hand. For 1 second, she hesitated. Just 1 second. One last chance to turn back. But then she thought about Marcus. The money. The luxury. The life she believed was waiting for her. And she walked away. The door closed, and David stood alone in silence. The woman he loved was gone. And he had no idea that this choice would become the biggest mistake of Amina's life. Because she thought she was walking toward happiness, when in reality, she was walking straight into a nightmare. The days that followed were the darkest of David's life. The empty chair at dinner, the silence in the bedroom, the memories in every corner of the house. Everything reminded him of Amina. Friends tried to comfort him. Neighbors tried to encourage him. But heartbreak like that does not disappear overnight. For months, David lived like a man whose spirit had been crushed. He stopped smiling, stopped dreaming, stopped believing in himself. Until one day, an elderly man named Mr. Kamau entered his workshop. Mr. Kamau was respected, successful, and known for his wisdom. His car had broken down outside town, and while others refused to stay late, David remained and fixed it. When the job was done, Mr. Kamau was impressed, not just by David's skill, but by his honesty. David charged only for what was necessary. No lies, no tricks, no greed. That honesty caught the old man's attention. Over time, they became friends. And one afternoon, Mr. Kamau said something that changed David's life forever. You can spend the next 10 years crying over someone who left, he said. Or you can spend the next 10 years becoming the man you were meant to be. Those words woke something inside David. And from that day on, everything changed. He worked harder than ever. He studied business. He learned management, leadership, and investment. He made mistakes. He faced failures. But he kept moving forward, year after year, step by step, until eventually, success found him. Then more success followed. And 5 years later, the poor mechanic who once struggled to survive had become one of the most respected businessmen in the region. His company expanded. His wealth grew. His confidence returned. The broken man was gone. A stronger man had taken his place. But while David was rebuilding his life, Amina's world was slowly falling apart. At first, life with Marcus looked perfect. Luxury gifts, beautiful vacations, expensive clothes, jewelry worth more than David could earn in years. Amina believed she had made the right choice. But appearances can be dangerously deceiving. Behind closed doors, Marcus was not the man he pretended to be. He was controlling, arrogant, manipulative, cruel. The charming mask slowly disappeared, and the real Marcus emerged. Then one day, Amina discovered the truth. There were other women, many other women. The same promises, the same lies, the same manipulation. When she confronted him, she expected regret. Instead, Marcus laughed. "You thought you were special?" he said. That sentence hit harder than any slap ever could. For the first time, Amina understood the truth. She had thrown away real love for an illusion. But things got worse. Marcus had made reckless financial decisions, bad investments, secret debts, dangerous deals. And when his empire began collapsing, everything disappeared. The cars, the money, the luxury, the comfort. And when trouble came, Marcus did what selfish people always do. He looked for someone else to blame. One night, he threw documents on the table and looked at Amina coldly. "We're done," he said. Amina froze. "What?" "You've become a burden." A burden. The same woman he once promised the world, now a burden. That night, Amina walked away with a suitcase in her hand, just as she had done 5 years earlier. But this time, nobody was waiting for her. No husband, no loving home, no future. Nothing. And under the dark night sky, standing completely alone, Amina finally understood the truth. The man she betrayed had loved her. The man she abandoned had valued her. The man she left behind had been her greatest blessing. Weeks passed. Amina wandered through life like a shadow. The luxury was gone. The jewelry was gone. The dreams were gone. All that remained was regret. Then one day in the market, she overheard 2 women talking. "Did you hear?" one said. "David's company just opened another office." Amina stopped walking. Her heart skipped. David. Even after 5 years, his name still shook something inside her. "They say he's one of the most successful businessmen in the region now," the women continued. "They say he's helping young people start businesses." They say he's building a school. They say hundreds of families eat because of him. Amina stood there in silence. Then, for the first time in years, she felt something unexpected. Hope. Maybe David would forgive her. Maybe he would understand. Maybe somehow they could begin again. The next day, Amina stood outside David's company headquarters. The building was modern, beautiful, and powerful, a reflection of the man David had become. Then, a luxury vehicle entered through the gates. Employees stepped aside respectfully. The car stopped. The door opened, and David stepped out. For a second, Amina barely recognized him. The shy mechanic was gone. The broken husband was gone. In his place stood a confident, dignified man, a man who had turned pain into power. Their eyes met, and for a few seconds, neither of them moved. 5 years of memories stood between them. Finally, David walked toward her. "Hello, Amina," he said calmly. No anger, no shouting, no bitterness, just peace. And somehow, that hurt her more. "Can we talk?" she asked. David looked at her for a moment, then nodded. A few minutes later, they sat across from each other in his office. The silence was heavy. Amina looked around. Everything in that room reminded her of what she had lost. Then tears rolled down her face. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I'm so sorry." David said nothing. "I made the biggest mistake of my life." Still, he remained silent. Then finally, after a long pause, he said, "I know." Amina cried harder. "I was selfish. I was foolish. I hurt you." David nodded slowly. "Yes." No argument, no denial, just truth. Amina wiped her tears. "I thought money would make me happy," she said. "I thought luxury meant success. I thought I was choosing a better future." Then her voice broke. "But I was wrong." David looked at her quietly and asked one question. "When you left me, did you ever look back?" Amina lowered her eyes, because she knew the answer. No, she hadn't. Not until life broke her too. That silence answered everything. David gave a sad smile and stood by the window. Then, after a moment, he turned back and said, "Amina, I forgave you a long time ago." Hope filled her eyes. But then David continued, "But forgiveness and trust are not the same thing." The hope began to fade. "I forgive you for breaking my heart," he said. "I forgive you for leaving. I forgive you for everything." Amina sobbed. Then David said the words that changed everything. "The woman I loved died the day she chose money over loyalty." Amina froze. David's voice remained calm. "I spent years trying to understand why. I spent years asking myself what I did wrong. And one day, I realized something." He paused. "It was never my failure. It was your choice." Amina cried harder, because deep inside, she knew he was right. David looked at her one last time. There was no hatred in his eyes, only peace, only self-respect, only closure. "I truly hope you find happiness," he said. but that journey can no longer include me." Then he walked toward the door. Before leaving, he stopped and said, "Do you remember the question from the beginning?" Amina remained silent. David smiled faintly. Love or money? Then he turned and delivered the words nobody in Kijana would ever forget. Money can buy comfort. Money can buy luxury. Money can buy attention. But money can never buy genuine love. And with that, David walked away, leaving Amina alone, just as she had once left him alone. Only now, she finally understood what real loss felt like. Months later, David continued growing his business, helping others, creating opportunities, changing lives. And Amina? She lived with a lesson she learned too late. That true wealth is not found in luxury houses, not in expensive cars, not in bank accounts. True wealth is found in the people who stay with you when you have nothing. And once that kind of love is lost, it may never return. So now, let me ask you again. At the beginning of this story, what answer did you write? Love or money? And after hearing everything that happened, would you still choose the same answer? Tell me in the comments. And if this story touched your heart, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to African Heart Vault, and share this story with someone who needs to hear this lesson today. Because sometimes, one decision can change an entire life. And sometimes, the most expensive mistake costs far more than money. Thank you for watching African Heart Vault. See you in the next story.